Let's talk about delegation. This is a spontaneous video, but I want to share with you some of my golden nuggets that I've learned over the years of delegating all types of work. Now, most people are afraid of delegating, and maybe if you're watching this video, you can resonate with this. You know that you should outsource certain things. You know that you need help. You know deep inside that you can't run your business just by yourself. And by the definition, it's not really a business if you're doing everything by yourself. That's a different story. But people are afraid of delegating for different reasons. Well, first of all, we are afraid that we will give up control. And there's this weird feeling that whatever it is that you want to outsource, you feel like you can do the best. Or at least you have that sense of control. So if something goes wrong, you know that it's going wrong. And then your brain is telling you, well, if you delegate it to somebody else, what if they will underperform? What if they'll make a mistake? You will not even know what's happening, right? So that's the first fear, this lack of control. And by the way, control is just an illusion, because when you really think about life in general, there's some control, but you got to give up some control. You never know. You may have an accident, disease, somebody may rob you, you may try to have a perfect plan for your life, but you have control only to a certain extent. So I don't know why, but for some reason we think that we need to have all the control in our businesses, but it's not the case. And to gain more control, you got to give up some control initially. So if you give up control initially to get the right people on board who will end up working for you and making 2 + 2 = 22 through that synergy effect, because the synergy is just beautiful. When you have the right people working together, you can create some tremendous results that you wouldn't be able to accomplish just by yourself, right? So when you give up some of that control and you go through the hustle and you put the effort to train the right people and to learn how to work with them, to learn how to communicate, well, eventually you're gonna have more control because you will have team members that you can rely on, okay? So that's the first thing. The second thing is lack of trust. People feel like they just can't trust other people, and this happens for various reasons. We all have our little traumas. We all had bad situations in the past, people betraying you, or, you know, no point of delving into it. But the point is, there's a lot of mistrust, and people feel strange paying somebody to do the job that they think they're gonna do better and trusting that they'll do the right job, that they won't stab them in the back, right? So this is just a mental issue that I feel like the best way to overcome it is to start slowly. So rather than suddenly going from 0 to 10 employees and outsourcing everything and suddenly you start spending 10 or 20K per month paying your employees, start slowly. Start small, but be consistent. Maybe get one person, get them for 10, 20 hours per week, maybe even less, maybe even 5 hours per week. Whatever makes you feel comfortable, learn how to work with them, learn how to communicate, and then keep increasing. Then you get a second person, but do it gradually so you feel comfortable. Get your feet wet, rather than saying to yourself, no, I'm not ready, I don't want to outsource, I don't want to delegate because I'm too afraid and I want to have control and I'm afraid I'm going to be stabbed in the back by someone. Instead of engaging in that negative spiral, say to yourself, you know what, I'm going to give it a shot. I'm going to do it on a small scale and see what happens and learn from the experience. And by the way, I feel like this applies to life in general and business. You know, getting your feet wet quickly is so important because you learn so much through the process. And one of the biggest killers of any business and actually any dream is overthinking, okay? So now that we know what are the issues with delegation, and I could mention a bunch more, but there's no point of spending 10 minutes of the video talking about the issues. Let's talk about the solution. And I feel like one of the most important things once you start delegating is to set very clear boundaries from the very beginning. You got to talk to people. You got to set extremely clear boundaries. Tell them what you believe in, what you don't believe in, what are the best practices, what are the total no-goes as well. Also set very clear rules for communication. For example, whenever I employ a new person, I tell them straight away, look, I like to use WhatsApp, but just because I send you an audio doesn't mean I want an audio back. I'm a very busy guy. So typically I would say, look, when I send you messages, I sometimes send an audio, but when you send me a response, please always send text unless I ask otherwise. Also what I do, and this is powerful, and this is something that many successful business people use, whenever I give somebody a task or share an idea, I want them to paraphrase it back to me. I don't just assume that just because I tell somebody, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, they got it. Because look, maybe they misunderstood or maybe I miscommunicated. We all often like to think that we are those amazing leaders who are never wrong, but we are just human and we sometimes miscommunicate. So whenever I give somebody a task and they paraphrase it back to me, that's when we both know that we are on the same page. And it's just beautiful how it works, because you can avoid so many issues right from the get-go. I had situations when I would say to someone, hey, I want you to do X, Y, and Z, and this is how I want you to do it. And I thought that I was very comprehensive in the way I explained, but still when that person paraphrased the task back to me, I realized, hold on a second, I forgot about that one important thing. And because of that, he or she misunderstood that task, right? So if you don't use this communication strategy, then you may end up getting into a lot of trouble, wasting a lot of time and resources, especially in terms of time and effort. This is one of the most important things that you can do. And another thing is, what I highly recommend you to do is to think about all of this beforehand. So rather than just hiring a person and then you kind of try to learn how to fly as you jump off a cliff, okay, part of it is always the case, but I feel like thinking through certain scenarios beforehand and then creating some type of procedures and best practices can be extremely, extremely powerful. Because in a way, you save yourself a lot of time, a lot of learning curve, right? If you bring somebody on board and you tell them right from the get-go, listen, this is what I believe in, these are the no-goes, these are the best practices, these are the boundaries. And by the way, if A happens, then I want you to do K. And if B happens, I want you to do M. So you set all of those different rules and then you make sure that you tell your employees, listen, if you have any questions, if something is unclear, I want you to ask me right away. There are no stupid questions. And this is the key, guys. Whenever you employ somebody, you gotta tell them, not just tell them, you have to make them feel that it's okay to ask questions. Because sometimes, I work with business owners and sometimes they say, oh, but I told this person you can't ask questions or you have to ask questions whenever something is not clear. But the way they say it, the tone of voice and the body language and just like the entire demeanor, you can sense that they don't really like questions. So you got to summon every bit of inner power to make your employees feel like, yes, if you have a question that may seem extremely dumb, please ask it because I love questions. And then here's what you do. Whenever a question pops up, you put it down in your question bank. So what you do is whenever there are questions, whenever something is not clear about some of your processes, rather than just answering and forgetting about it, you put it in your bank. And even better, you tell your employee, by the way, can you please put the question that you asked and my answer in our Excel spreadsheet, whatever it is that you use for that. Because what's going to happen is that as you keep going along, this helps you to build up procedures. Because imagine this, right? You hire someone, maybe you hire 2 or 3 people, they keep having questions, you created the best practices. Along the way, some mistakes happened inevitably because this is life, but you keep documenting everything. Then maybe 2 months or maybe 6 months down the line, you want to employ 5 more people. Now, instead of going through the same process again, you can basically give them access to that folder and say, hey, I want you to get really familiar with every single best practice, with every single boundary that I have in there, with all the rules. I want you to get familiar with all the questions and answers and also case studies. And this way, you save up so much time and thanks to that, so much money as well, and so much nerves, right? Because rather than going through the same process over and over again, you use what you've learned and you use it to cut your learning curve. So anyway, I could talk about it for a long time. I don't want to make this video too long. What I'm going to do is, if you guys have any questions about this, because this is a really interesting topic. I was featured in an article recently about this, like 6,000 words. I think I'm going to link it up underneath the video, but if you have any questions, then do let me know because I want to make more videos about this, because I've been hiring lots of different people over the years and I've been working internationally. So pretty much my entire team is 100% remote. Anybody I work with, from video producers to video editors to graphic designers to my VAs, everybody's working remotely. And it's interesting, but I've been also working with people one-on-one, face-to-face in different locations, right? So I do have a lot of experience. I made my mistakes and I was never really focusing on making videos on this topic, but people have been asking me about this and I believe that you got to listen to your audience. And since many of you guys are running businesses or you start a business or maybe you're like in the phase where you want to get started but you want to get things right, well, I'm going to make more of those videos. So any questions, any comments, do let me know.